What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking all about bad jumping days, why they happen, how do we deal with them. While I talk, I'm going to be playing a video of a compilation of the last 3 or 4 dunk sessions that I've had this month, and they've been really bad. You might see all the highlights of all my crazy dunks on Instagram, but what you don't see is that I have bad days just like any other dunker out there. And there can be a lot of reasons for why bad jumping days happen, and we're going to go over all of them and how to solve it, what to do about it, and how you can continue progressing. We're going to go over the physical aspects of bad jumping days and also the mental aspect of how to deal with bad jumping days, because honestly, the psychological factor is probably the most difficult part about dunk training and jump training in general. Dealing with those bad jumping days is one of the most important things that you can do as a dunker, and it's probably going to be the biggest predictor of your success as a dunker, because if you can't deal with bad jumping days, most likely you're not going to have the discipline and motivation to keep training and keep making progress over the long run. It's really easy to make progress when training's going great, when you're jumping well, but it's when you're dealing with those really bad jumping days or bad training sessions, that's the real predictor of your success as a dunker. The first thing that you have to understand is that bad jumping days are completely normal. They happen to everybody. Look at your favorite dunker on Instagram or YouTube. They have bad jumping days. Same thing with the beginner or the naturally gifted athlete or the guy who has bad genetics for jumping. Every athlete has bad jumping days. I recently saw a video that popped up on my feed, and they were talking about the rule of thirds is basically that a third of the time you're going to feel great, your body's going to be feeling amazing, a third of the time you're going to be feeling okay, and a third of the time you're going to be feeling crappy. And this is a really important rule to keep in mind, and it applies to basically the entire spectrum of athletic performance. Bad jumping days are also relative to the athlete. My bad jumping day isn't going to be the same as a beginner's bad jumping day, or somebody that has been training for 20 years bad jumping day. Someone with a higher skill set is going to have a higher relative bad jumping day. So if somebody has a 50-inch vertical, a 40-inch vertical jump for them is a 20% decrease in their jump performance, which is a huge decrease. Versus if someone has a 38-inch vertical, they're not even going to be at the 40-inch vertical. So of course their bad jumping days is going to be significantly lower. So when you're looking at a dunker on Instagram, or even this is more important when you're dunking with them in person, they might be having a bad jumping day but still be able to hit east bays, windmills, and stuff like that. Do not be demotivated by that. There's a really good saying that I live by, and it is that comparison is the thief of joy. And I've seen it happen a lot when I've dunked with other dunkers that aren't very good in person. And when they see me doing crazy dunks, they get extremely demotivated. Don't be demotivated by other people's progress, all right? Use it as inspiration or as motivation as needed. But don't compare yourself to them. Just try to be better than you were the day before, or that better than you were the month before, the year before. Don't compare yourself to other people. That is a very easy way to get demotivated. There's always going to be someone out there that's better. Don't worry about it. Just be better than you were yourself, all right? Now, to learn how to deal with bad jumping days, you have to understand the different causes for bad jumping days. And there's 3 main reasons for a bad performance. They are injury, fatigue, and motivation. Now, if you're having a bad jumping day due to injury, for example, let's say you're dunking and your back hurts or your knee hurts, the smart thing to do is cut the session and do something that's going to make you feel better the next day. I recently made a video on knee pain. I suggest you watch it, but basically you want to do something on the day that you know is going to have you feeling healthy. If you feel like something is going to cause you to feel worse the next day, do not do it, all right? Always ask yourself first, is this going to hurt me or is this going to help me? If it's going to help me, keep going, keep jumping. If it's going to hurt you, stop what you're doing and do something different that's going to aid you in the recovery process. Now, if the bad jumping day is due to fatigue, that is completely normal. Remember the rule of thirds. 2/3 of the time, you're probably going to be feeling tired and not jumping your very highest. Now, there's a couple of different things that you can do to deal with fatigue. One of the best things that you can do if you are really fatigued, like if you're sore and you can barely move, is low rim. Low rim is going to allow you to still get those jumping reps in, but practice technique for dunks that you're not able to hit yet. And it's also going to allow you to practice good reps. One of the worst things you can do as a dunker is practice misses, practice really bad dunk technique, all right? Sometimes, let's say you are trying to dunk on 10 feet, you might not even be able to hit the dunks that you normally hit. So it's kind of a wasted session if you're not practicing dunks. So lower the rim to a height where you can practice whatever it is that you're trying to work on that day. And it is actually completely normal for in the middle of a training cycle for there to be a performance decrease due to fatigue. Chances are, if you're not jumping a little bit lower in the middle of your training cycle than you would do when you are deloaded or when you've peaked properly, then you're probably not training hard enough. So it is completely normal to be jumping lower in the middle of a training cycle. I cannot stress enough how important it is to realize this. Training to maintain performance is completely different from training to increase performance. If you're trying to jump higher and increase your performance as an athlete, you're going to be fatigued. You're going to be jumping lower when you're in the middle of those strenuous training cycles. So if you're fatigued, own it, accept it. Understand that it is part of the process. Speaking of which, do not make conclusions about your training based on a string of bad jumping days or one bad jumping day. I see this so much. Somebody will have literally one day where they're jumping a little bit lower than they normally do, and they'll start freaking out. They'll think their training's not working and that they need to change this up. They need to try a new setup, a new training program, a completely different cycle. Stop. Only judge your performance based on how you jump in an ideal training environment. What is an ideal jumping environment? It consists of three things: a high adrenaline environment, you're healthy, completely healthy, and you're deloaded. A high adrenaline environment can be anything like dunking in front of a big crowd after a basketball game, or in a very competitive dunk session with other dunkers that are like similar to your skill level. Do not make a judgment about your training and performance unless all those factors are present. Now, the third cause of bad jumping days is probably the most insidious, and that is a bad jumping day due to low motivation. A few ways to deal with low motivation is dunking with other people. You can change the environment. For example, if you normally are dunking alone and you're feeling not motivated, then get an environment where you're around other dunkers or basketball players. A really good example of this is there was one time I had a dunk session early in the morning and I could barely dunk. I think my best dunk that I hit was a rim grazed windmill, and I was out there for like an hour trying my best, missing everything, just feeling really, really bad. Later that evening, I was sitting at my house and I was like, dang, like I suck. Like I feel like I still my legs aren't even tired. So I decided to go play basketball. When I went and played basketball after the first game, I think I hit a 360 under both and a reverse 360 East Bay off the backboard on a 10-foot rim. In the morning, I think I was on 910. And then there was such a big difference in my performance. And the only thing that changed was the environment. I was completely warmed up, super competitive right after finishing a basketball game. There was a lot of people in the gym, and that made the difference between barely being able to windmill and doing literally the hardest level dunks that I can do. And that's something that's really important, because if you are practicing, like take me for example, if I'm just practicing rim grazed windmills every single session for a year, I'm not going to get better. To get better, you have to be jumping as hard as you can, practicing technique for those hard dunks, getting out of your comfort zone, and being in a good environment for that is going to make all the difference. And then lastly, something else that you can try for low motivation is caffeine, but don't rely on it too much. I tend to only use caffeine for like deloads or when I'm trying to peak, but that can also be a way for you to kind of increase performance and motivation during those low motivation, bad jumping days. Also, if you are in the middle of a bad jumping day, there is still always something that you can work on. A good example of this was in 2021. I was going through a very difficult training cycle. It was like a 3-month period where I was training really, really hard, and I was jumping a lot lower than I normally do. But I made a rule for myself that every single dunk session, I was going to try to hit a new dunk. It doesn't matter how tired you are, you can always work on new dunks, because there's always little variations of things that you can do. And the cool thing about that is that if you're having a really bad session, but you're working on something new and you hit something new, the excitement and adrenaline that comes from accomplishing that can actually carry you for the rest of the dunk session, and it can completely turn the dunk session around and lead you to hitting other stuff. So understand your capabilities for that day, understand how high you're jumping, and pick something that you can hit and work on that is new, that you haven't done before, that is within your capabilities. Finally, I'm going to talk about the mental aspect of dealing with bad jumping days, and this is really important. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is becoming too attached to the results. I see so many athletes that are just extremely result driven, and that is a very easy to get demotivated and burn out from training. You have to shift your mindset from being results driven to being process driven. Enjoy the process, fall in love with the training, with dunking, with just being in the moment instead of training to achieve a result. Like training because you are trying to hit a 50-inch vertical or to hit your first dunk or your first windmill. Instead of focusing on that goal, fall in love with the process. Set a goal so that it can give you a path to go down. But once that goal is set, don't think about it so much. Just focus on the exact current step that you're on that path to that goal. But stop becoming attached to the goal and be okay with not achieving it, right? As long as you are showing up every single day and you're just enjoying the process, enjoying the moment, it's going to take you very far. Also, these are two things that personally helped me out a lot in my jump training process. And honestly, I wouldn't be where I am without these two things. One of them is studying Stoicism, Stoic philosophy. You guys might have heard of it. It's a form of thinking that allows you to just accept things as they come. With literally anything that happens in your life, things are either within your control or they're out of your control. If they're out of your control, you have to just accept them, let them be. There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. Only try to change things if you can control them. And literally that right there is the core of Stoic philosophy, and it can take you very, very far, and it can help you deal with a lot of like the negative emotions and downsides of training. And secondly is I suggest everybody learn how to meditate. Meditation is a super easy thing you can do. I started literally by meditating 2 minutes a day. If you can do something for 2 minutes every day, you'll form the habit, and eventually you can get better at it, meditate for longer. But just sit down, close your eyes, and just focus on your breath. Eventually your mind's gonna wander, and then just bring your attention back to your breath. Do that for the however long it is that you're meditating. And that's all I'm gonna say on that, but that is gonna lead you a very long way in learning how to deal with like negative emotions and that sort of thing. This is something that I can go farther into in another video. Comment down below if you guys want me to talk about kind of that like mental aspect of training. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Make sure to like the video, comment any questions that you have, and I'll do my best to answer every single comment. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always, go to THPstrength.com if you want me and John Evans to coach you personally on how to get rid of knee pain, how to jump higher, run faster, literally achieve any athletic goal that you have. THPstrength.com, best coaching on the planet, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.